So I wanted to do a quick video about sexual consent. I've been quite surprised how many people, both within the Muslim community and the black community in general, are oblivious about sexual consent, whether it's from a religious perspective or legal perspective. How many men are not aware of consent? And I've run a few polls online where majority of people who voted have said that most men do not understand consent, in comparison to obviously most women reporting that they understand sexual consent. And that's why obviously you've had a number of issues in terms of sexual assault allegations, and why a number of men, I think, oftentimes don't believe women, because I think a lot of men do not understand consent. So I've got 6 recommended books that talk about consent in different ways that I would recommend. So the first one is a book. It's called The Joy of Consent. It's called The Joy of Consent by Manon Garcia, A Philosophy of Good Sex. This is quite a academic read and explores consent, the legal framework from a legal and ethical perspective. She's a French academic, I believe, that's also studied in she's a French academic and philosopher, but she does explore consent. This is a really good academic read on sexual consent and its importance. The second book is The Big O by Oloni, who is a British Nigerian sex educator expert. She also has a podcast. She's got actually a really good chapter on consent, and she talks about the grey areas, or the so-called grey areas, how to navigate consent. And again, even though this is, I think, primarily directed at women, I think men could also benefit a lot from this, exploring consent, whether it's in dating, relationships, casual encounters. Again, it's important that people understand consent from both not only a legal and religious perspective, but also from an ethical, moral perspective. The third book is the case against the sexual revolution, by Louise Perry, a new guide to sex in the 21st century. Yeah, this is a really well researched book. Really strong arguments about the so-called hookup culture, and how in her perspective how it's been detrimental to women, but she does talk about sexual consent here. So again, this is a really good book about understanding sexual consent in Western societies. The fourth book, Tomorrow Sex Will Be Good Again. Tomorrow Sex Will Be Good Again. And this is by Katherine Angel. Very good, easy to read book. The subtitle is Women and Desire in the Age of Consent. So she has, I think it's a chapter. Yeah, she has a chapter on consent. And again, very easy to read and well written. But this is a good book to understand consent. The fifth book, Losing It, Sex Education in the 21st Century. Losing It, Sex Education in the 21st Century by British journalist Sophia Smith-Gaylor. And she explores the different myths around sex, whether it's virginity myth, the hymen myth, the tightness myth, which has got a nice chapter on sexual consent and the myth of consent, or how people do not really understand consent, especially millennials and young people, Generation Z. So that's the fifth book. And the sixth and final book I would recommend on this topic is by Sophie Gallagher, How Men Can Help. How Men Can Help, and you can see the interesting title. It's also Why Women Need Help, or why women need change. But it's the title is How Men Can Help, and it's a book which again, really well written, explores sexual consent, and there's obviously strong arguments in terms of how to end sexual violence against women and girls. So again, they're really good books I would recommend people to read, although a number of those books are aimed at women. I definitely think for men in particular, whether you are a young man, whether you're sexually active, whether you are religious, whether you are someone who's an educator or teacher, those 6 books are definitely recommended books to read to understand consent, because enough men, or not enough men, actually understand the consent, which is quite frightening. So again, there's 6 books again. The Joy of Consent, The Big O by Oloni, The Case Against the Sexual Revolution by Louise, Tomorrow Sex Will Be Good Again, Losing It, and How Men Can Help. So they're the 6 books on sexual consent that I recommend people check out.